Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. And I am breaking one rule for my favorite people in the world. I was just on the Homewrecker podcast. Alex and Monique Pliakos are here, and I never have had more than one person on the interview. But today, these are my special friends. And by the way, sign up for the Patreon, or even better, sign up for my newsletter off of my website. That's going to have my comedy dates on it. Psychic Stand-Up is rocking. I'm coming to a town near you. But today, my friends from the Homewrecker podcast, first of all, Monique is a tarot reader. She is a hypnotist. She is a housewife. She knows how to make bread. She has chickens. Monique, good to have you.
Thank you, Karen.
And Alex, I know you fix a lot of things. That's what I know. You're good with making and fixing things, right?
Sure. You say so.
That should happen.
And good with paranormal topics. How about that?
Fair enough. We'll take it.
So I sort of gave you guys an assignment because we were like, well, what are we going to talk about? And I love that you did research, because most people, in fact, when you read the bad reviews for my podcast, they're because I didn't do any research. And
Awesome.
I just asked people. In fact, one time I said to Richard, he's on your podcast all the time, our friend from England, Richard
Suggs?
Yes. Wait.
No, he hasn't been on our show.
No?
No.
Well, wait. Oh, all right. Well, I thought you talked to him. Oh, no, maybe that's Jennifer Holtz.
Yes,
that's
Jen did.
Okay.
Our crow sister.
Yes, because I said to him once, I was like, and you got a new book out, and you sent me this great picture. Is that the cover picture there? Is that your dog? And he was like, that's not the cover picture or my dog. But
tremendous.
He's very polite. So today's topic is cryptids. Now, have you guys had any experience with cryptids other than information?
We've had really strange experiences happen. We don't know if they're necessarily cryptids. And we've done on our show, we've done episodes about cryptids where we went over, some of the more local cryptids on our end on the East Coast in New England. But I personally, I love Sasquatch. And when I'm out, we live up in the mountains. We moved from a city in New Hampshire up to the mountains. And when I'm outside, I talk to Sasquatch, and I see Sasquatch as this healing being that is here to protect, life and earth. And I just, put prayers out and, thank you for looking out, watching out. And I can feel energy, but I don't physically see Sasquatch. But when our house was being built, we were living in a tent for 6 months?
About 6 months.
Yeah, about 6 months. So it was April to November. And we're living in a tent. And when you're living in a tent, you hear things. And we would have to go outside to use the bathroom. So it's late at night and there's no bathroom in a tent. We'd have to go outside. And we would hear things. We would see some strange stuff. But, it's hard to tell. What is this exactly? I think Alex actually heard Faye singing one night.
Ooh.
I didn't hear it, but he did.
Yeah, that was weird. That one I cannot explain. Everything else I chalk up to just some kind of animal that I'm not used to hearing or whatever. But there was one night where, I heard some singing, and it was freaking me out. And the fact that Monique couldn't hear it, I was just like, what do you mean you can't hear it? It's clear as day. They're singing.
And what was weird?
She didn't hear anything. It was so real to me. I heard it clear as day, just like these voices singing, and it didn't sound like any language I've ever heard. I mean, I've only really know English and Greek, but it didn't sound like anything I'd ever heard before. And it freaked me out, I'll be honest, because I couldn't explain it.
You can't even say it's all Greek to me because you would understand.
Right.
if it was good.
Exactly.
And by the way,
Exactly.
folks, if this first part of the podcast ends abruptly, it's because I'm a genius and the battery is running out. But I think we can make it. But you'll just hear an ad, and then we'll keep going. But okay, so I find when you were saying to her, "Did you hear that?" Was it going on at the moment, or it was like the next day? You were like, "Did you hear the singing?"
No, it was going on that moment, and she couldn't hear anything, and it was still happening. I'm like, how do you not hear that? How can you not hear that? And it was just it freaked me out.
And when he said that, I went into like my mode of like, I'm listening, and then I'm trying to feel the energy. And I didn't feel like anything negative. I just felt like everything's good and normal. And it's weird because I've seen Faye, and I thought, oh, that's weird that I don't hear it. But I thought maybe this is just for Alex. This is something he's supposed to experience. Yeah.
Yes. And that kind of makes sense to me in that I think a lot of times we're on different frequencies. Like a lot of, I think I insulted someone once, and I didn't mean to say this, but she was a medium and she didn't believe in demons. And I was like, wow, I wonder if you guys are on a different, or skip a frequency. That's what I said. And I think it came across kind of snotty, but I didn't mean it. Right? But I think you're right. It's funny because Alex might have, like I have, some sort of weird connection to the Fae. Even this lady that was a cook was like, "Oh my God, you like fairy food?" Apparently, fairies are vegan or whatever. They like whatever. But I own a small harp, and I have this desire to play the harp all the time, even though I'm not good at it. And I'm like, that's a Fae thing. Like they want me to play the harp.
I love that.
Yes. So that's fascinating. Now, have you guys, I'm sure you've heard on YouTube and stuff, there's people that have recorded things that they say are Bigfoot voices, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And they do sound different than an animal. And I'm on the fence. You love Bigfoot. I'm a little on the fence because when I did a Bigfoot episode, there was a guy that sometimes they attack people, but sometimes they protect areas. Is that correct?
Well, I think with Bigfoot, for me personally, I think it's, kind of like people. Not everyone's nice. And who knows what kind of day they've had? I don't know. But I try to approach anything in nature with respect and try to be non-threatening unless I need to be. So if I'm out in the woods and a bear approaches me, well, I want to just go pet it and love it and hold it, but I know it could maul me. So, and if it comes on my property, I have to protect my animal. So I have to put my arms up and be like, and be loud and scare them away.
Yep.
And I think sometimes, what is the intent of people? What is the energy they're carrying? Because if you're going up there to cause destruction or damage or be disrespectful, if somebody comes on my property like that, yeah, I'm going to beat them, right? I might, like, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. But you just never know. So I kind of look at it like always be respectful and go at it. Trying to have a good, calm energy. And hopefully, if you're lucky, it's all good. And who knows, they might be trying to make contact. They might just want to be left alone. But yeah, I've heard all these different stories. But often when there is a negative interaction from these stories with Bigfoot, it's usually because people were doing stupid things. And it's kind of like, well, I don't really blame them. And some people are just doing their own thing and they're getting rocks thrown at them, but they could just be territorial. And it could just be a matter of you're in my territory, get out. Leave.
I think that's true. I've heard stories of people camping and something coming up and rocking the camper, like almost knocking it over, which could be their territory. Now, we both, you and I were discussing how Derek Condit kind of describes them as a density more so than a frequency. So it's like a fan, which is interesting because Bigfoots move really fast, don't they? Isn't that the thing? Like they're super speedy. I think it's kind of like that. The good Bigfoot stories that I've heard were almost always with people who had homes And there was something about helping to protect the people in those homes. So maybe you guys got Bigfoots protecting you.
Maybe. I mean, we're really lucky just with the wildlife in general because we have a lot of deer. For the most part, I mean, I don't know if I told you this before, but when we first moved up here, there was a raccoon that was was it like maybe 100, 200 feet away?
100 feet away, yeah.
Across, we have a pond in our backyard. And there was a raccoon that came over and I waved at it and it got up on its hind legs and put its arms up and waved, kind of like waved its hands. And I'm like, oh my goodness, hello. And so it starts coming over closer and I wave again and it does it. It gets up and it waves its little hands. And it literally came right up to me. And I was in a very calm, sort of meditative, grounded state. And it literally was maybe a foot from me?
Yes, I actually got a video of it. We'll have to send that to you later so you can see it, Karen.
It got very close to me. And I'm
thinking,
I was like, is it going to jump in my lap? Can I pet it? Can I love it? And then I thought, oh shit, there's rabies. I might need to be careful. And so as soon as that thought popped in my head, I got just the smallest amount of caution and fear. And that's when it stopped and it slowly backed away and just went away. I'm like, oh no, I ruined it. But one thing I've noticed with me with wildlife is when I'm in my meditative grounded state, like when I'm making organite, I'm barefoot, feet on the ground. I am grounded. I'm meditating. Animals get so close to me. And it's not until I kind of notice it. I'm like, oh, and it's almost startling. And it's like, oh, and they realize it. It's like we're both in this weird state where we're just kind of coming together. And then it's like the littlest thing takes us out of it. And then it's like, boom, oh yeah, back to normal. Like you're an animal. We're supposed to kind of be a little more cautious of each other. So it's really interesting.
I've always said there's this interesting moment that only if you've lived in the woods or close to the woods that you know, where you are doing something and then you turn around and you make eye contact with something like a deer or and sometimes a moose would come down from Canada, but it's almost like you lock eyes like, oh, I didn't see you there. What do we do now? Well, yeah, like even like the deer didn't hear you and you didn't hear the deer.
Yeah.
And then everybody just kind of goes their way. But that makes perfect sense to me. But I have to say, there was this woman that had this relationship with raccoons on YouTube or something, and she would feed them marshmallows. And believe me, randomly one bit her. And it was so random. So raccoons, I think, it's kind of like a squirrel. I have to say that all the animals in my area have been trying to get in my house lately. I don't know why. There's a squirrel that waits for me to come home. He climbs on the window. There's a little chipmunk. I would like to get closer to the chipmunk. That doesn't seem scary. And then chickadees walked into my breezeway and were just standing there. And I'm like, what is happening? And that's on top of the bats that I used to have.
I know. And me, I'd be like, bats are so adorable. And I'm like, I just want to hold you and love you.
Yes, thank you, Alex. They're when they're flying around your house and hitting you in the head, and you don't know if you're getting scratched or not. They're a little much.
Yeah. No, I get it.
So you know what's interesting? We're going to talk about another cryptid that is not a cryptid either, or it's a different name or whatever. But the one that I can never get on board with is the Jersey Devil. Like, the story with it, and maybe it's something where, people put enough energy into it so that it became something, but that's a tough one. How do you feel about the Jersey Devil?
So we actually there's a show, Destination X, and Josh Gates, who's from Massachusetts, where we're both from, he is an archaeologist and he had all these shows on like the Travel Channel. So he has a show where he has these two investigators, basically a kind of a scientific skeptic and somebody who's into the paranormal, and they go research stuff, and they looked into the Jersey Devil and they came up with the best explanation because there are some bats that are freaking huge. You know how they're like huge birds?
Great.
And the way they explained it with the research they did, it was like, that actually makes sense because Alex and I, before we got on the phone together, we were talking about cryptids and how I think it's so fun. And you kind of want some things to be real, but at the same time, you really need to do your due diligence to make sure, like, are you believing it because you want to, or because there's actual proof of it? And we're living in a day and age where everything can be faked now.
Yeah. And
I
your
mean,
gut.
anyone.
What does your gut tell you?
So Jersey Devil, I feel like no, it's just a story, and it was combined with something that was real, but it's a real animal that came from somewhere else.
That makes sense.
Because have you heard, I forget the name of the spiders, but did you hear about these spiders that like kind of fly? And they came from, yes, and they came from Asia, and they got in a shipping crate and then got to the US. And that kind of stuff can happen. There are creatures, animals, insects that can travel overseas hidden in something somewhere and then get somewhere else. So that is possible. So a giant bat from another country, well, if it came through like a ship or something was hidden in there, it's very possible. So I think it's really important with these stories that you have to look into it and you have to do research. And at the end of the day, also go with what makes sense and go with your gut. And who am I to say that it's not real? I just personally don't think it's real because I think other reasonable explanations have been found to explain away what it could be.
Right. And it is a weird like that one just never worked for me. And they even have a little Jersey Devil thing on the boardwalk that's kind of cute. So
yeah,
it's kind of cute. But yeah, that one it never really gelled for me. Whereas, we're talking about fairies and maybe even jinn. And I know we haven't seen those either, but I fully believe in them. Like that one, I'm well on board. And it's funny that everybody draws the line in a different place,
Absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's funny because Monique always talks about fairies and fae and all that kind of stuff. And until I heard something outside, I was always like, okay, sure. That's nice, honey. But I never believed in it.
He's like,
and
that's
now,
your truth.
Yeah. And now it's like, I had some experience. I don't know if it was fae, but I couldn't explain it. I still can't explain it. So I'm more open now to those type of things just because I've experienced something myself.
Right. Well, and that's one of those things when you've had anything, a near-death experience, an out-of-body experience, anything like that, where you can't explain it, it's really good because it opens that door just a little bit to, well, there could be anything.
Yep.
All right, folks, hold on one second. We made it to the first half. I'm going to change the battery. You're going to hear an ad, and we'll be right back.
Hi, everybody. Do you love everything paranormal, supernatural, or otherwise spiritual?
Well, of course you do. You're listening to Paranormal Karen.
If you like some humor sprinkled into your morning commute or wherever you listen to your podcast, we don't judge. We've got the most fantastic paranormal podcast for you.
I'm Dana.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Megan. We'd love for you to join us at Supernormal on YouTube or wherever else you get your podcast fix.
Trust us, it's weird, it's wild, and a whole lot of fun.
I'm not weird, you're weird.
Okay, folks, so we're going a little off cryptid topic for a second, but we got some more good cryptid. But I love, so you guys, is your whole house off grid?
It's not off grid.
Okay, but you built it and go ahead, tell me more about it.
So the house we have, basically, we were living in the city when Alex and I got together. He was looking for a house, and I was like, I want to be in the country. I grew up in the country that was all farmland and woods, and that's where I'd like to be. But because of his job, it was hard. He had to kind of stay where he worked.
And what did you do, Alex?
I used to work for a telecommunications company. I was climbing telephone poles and going into people's houses and fixing their stuff, their technical stuff, internet, TVs, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm not going to say the name of the company, but it's pretty obvious who it was. You can kind of figure it out.
I was going to, when you were saying I was going in houses and climbing telephone poles, and then I was going to go, and did you have a job? Or were you just doing Okay, so you guys were kind of in the city life like the rest of us.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we had weird experiences too. We had a phenomena that happened. And it happened a few times, and we've talked about it on the show, but we never really got exact explanations. There was one weird thing that happened, and then it kind of happened here too, um, where it got like weirdly quiet, and it's almost like the pressure in the air changed and the sound changed, almost like we were in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
Because where we were a couple miles from a highway, but it was almost like all the other sound dampened and you could just sort of hear the cars on the highway. It was very bizarre. And the energy felt very, very weird. And we're like, okay, that's weird. And then another time we were outside shoveling and we started hearing horns.
Horns, yeah.
And we were like, what is this? And again, the air changed, the pressure changed. It was like, again, almost like in an echo chamber, but we're hearing these horns. And we're like, that's weird. And we've had stuff like that happen when we moved. So we were looking to get out of the city. And my parents are getting older, and I'm very close with them. And one of the things I've always said is, as you get older, I want to be there to help take care of you. And I'm very happy and
I
lucky
never
that
said
Alex.
that. I never ever said that. Just if anyone's keeping record, I ended up here, but
Well, and I'm very lucky Alex loves my family too. And so we kind of made a deal that wherever either of us moved, we would be together either in the same town or try to get enough land where we could build and all live on the same property. And my parents found a home that's a log cabin. It's over 11 acres and it's on like a private dirt road up at the top of a mountain. And so you have like this remoteness and you still have neighbors, but it's still pretty remote. And so we were able to build an addition onto the house. So that way we have our own space, but we're right there if they need us for anything. And while our home was being built, we lived in a tent. We were told the build should take 3 months, and it took technically over 6 just to get in the house, and it still wasn't even ready yet. So that was a whole nightmare we dealt with.
Now,
But
when it was November though, and you're in a tent, are you outside?
Yeah, so
freezing.
it would get
it was cold.
in the tent during the summer. It was over 110 degrees. So we had to get a portable air conditioner and like hook it up through like cords and everything to the house. And when in November, it started getting below freezing. And we had our cat who's like 22 years old at the time. And I was worried about her. And what was weird is I started getting this weird feeling. I'm like, a tree's going to fall. Something's going to collapse. Something's going to fall. We need to get out of the tent. And I was just, as each day went by, I was getting this very apprehensive feeling. I was very nervous. So we heard snow was coming and we told the builder, like, this is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be in the house. It's going to snow soon. And so our bedroom was basically livable, even though there was no bathroom ready yet. But we were able to get in the house. We moved our bed and some of our things. And the next day it snowed. And we got up in the morning. There was only like less than an inch of snow that came down. Our tent had collapsed. The pole in the middle holding like the main of it up, it bent weirdly. And where it fell was right where I sleep. So if we were in the tent, I could have been like really injured or even killed.
You know,
yeah, that.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was the big support beam. If anybody's ever seen or been inside a big tent, we had it was what, 20
like
feet?
A big, yeah, 20-foot
it was
bell
a big
canvas tent.
bell canvas tent,
almost like a yurt, sort of, but
yeah,
canvas.
But right in the middle was this big, round, thick support beam, and that bent just from the weight of not even an inch of snow, and where it bent, the bend point, the sharp, jagged edge of the bend point fell right where Monique would have been sleeping if we'd have been in there. Yeah, it was crazy.
That, by the way, I hope there's no background noise, but I forgot that once the summer comes, Utica is 24-hour lawnmowers all the time, all the time. There's not that much grass, and they're always out there. So, that's an interesting thing about intuition that I feel like you have to. Like you were like, a tree's going to fall or something. Like I have a new saying, because if you just ask a question, if people know you're a psychic and you just ask a question, you go, hey, what time is the show? They go, well, you're a psychic. Shouldn't you know?
Yeah.
And so my new response to that is, show me you're not funny without showing me you're not funny, because I'm like,
I like that.
you know what I mean? And it's not, yours was pretty direct, but sometimes it's just like, no, we should really not be in the tent. I'm all done today, and you can win. But that's interesting. The wow, the house has never done it. How do you dispose of a giant tent when you're done with it? Where do you put it?
The dump. We had to bring it to the dump. Yeah, because it got all torn up and destroyed from collapsing. And
it all ripped, so we couldn't even reuse it or repurpose it.
I really can't believe you guys stepped in a tent that long. Like I'm thinking living on the road, and I'm thinking 2 days tops. 2 days tops, and then a Hilton.
Well, if there's one thing, like for us, it was like, hey, we survived living in over 100 degrees and below freezing in a tent. We made it. Like we're tough. Like,
yeah,
we know, like we went through this. We can get through anything.
This whole year, even in that time, you were doing that. I was having bats. It was so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so. You had the Fae experience there. Now we're going to jump topics for 1 second, because when we were first talking about this, Monique, you were like, what cryptid are you interested in? And I've been very interested in a rake, which is AK. And everybody probably that has heard my podcast, we're pretty all well linked, Jessa and Ryan Singer. Ryan Singer had that terrifying story before where something in the woods in Florida just came at him in the middle of the night, and somebody said it was a rake, and he looked it up and he kind of thought that was it, but it was sort of the same looking creature but a different name. Tell me how, because I said rake and then you were like, I don't think rake's a thing. What did you find on the rake?
Okay, because I love to do my research.
You do. I like to hire you.
I like to find out stuff. So I was looking up the rake, and it's kind of tricky because it's similar to Slender Man. So on first glance, it seems like the rake began in 2003 as a collaborative 4chan story. And it was described as a creature that's pale, about 6 feet tall, but often seen crouching on all fours. It has spindly limbs and like no nose or mouth. And some say it has like 3 solid green eyes. And people would see it in the front yards of suburban areas, especially in the Northeast. And they would say like there's no mouth, but when it goes to attack, its mouth, like it would open at the chin, almost like as if it unhinged from the skull with lots of teeth inside. But so what started as a story, a collaborative 4chan story, got moved to Creepypasta, which is a website, and they talk about like horror stories and stuff. And there was more that came from it. So I think with the rake, what happened was a story was made on 4chan. Creepypasta added to it, but what they did was they changed the appearance a little bit. And then they started saying there were origins dating back to the 1600s. And stories about notes and things that people said, but everything was so vague. And it's not, there was no way to link it to anything. There were no real names involved. There were no real places involved. There was nothing. So it's just made up, and it's not something that you could really research. But one thing when I was researching the rake was so many people said it sounds like a crawler. And so as I looked up the crawler, and you got to be careful because people are putting pictures of this cryptid, but then it's actually pictures of what's supposed to be a different cryptid. So again, you really have to do research to see, what am I looking at? What are these photos? Is that actually what it is? Or did somebody say that looks like it? I'm going to take it and use it for myself to describe what I saw. Who knows? Maybe they're just making it all up. I don't know. But the crawler is described as a large, pale or gray skinned crawling humanoid. And it's been seen all over the US. I mean, there are reports in Illinois, Florida, like everywhere. But there's also reports of encounters in Canada, England, and Australia.
And those encounters aren't this one's not a nice one. We're not saying there's good and bad ones of this, right? It's kind of a scream and it's kind of awful. It's just scary.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, people fear, like they get this sense of dread. And witnesses do claim that it's like this lanky, hairless, skinny, pale or gray being, like humanoid type being, long limbs, very pointy clawed fingers and toes, sunken in eyes, and it can bend its limbs in kind of unnatural ways.
In kind of grasshopper-y ways.
Yeah. And they say like the sound it makes, it can be a variety of sounds. Sometimes it's loud clicking. Sometimes it's a very deep rashed throat groan. Sometimes it's like a humanish screaming or screeching. And sometimes it's even repeating words or even squealing that has a bit of a click to it. And some people think it's not its own thing. Some people try to say it's a Wendigo or a skinwalker. And I can see that. I can see how people might, encounter what this thing is because it does have that similar creepiness to it and the sounds that it apparently makes. But some people think it could be, like some people say it's a demon, and other people think it could be some type of biotechnology creation.
Oh, that's interesting. If they've been around a long time though,
But what's weird is it's only started in like the early 2000s.
Oh, okay, interesting. I also kind of feel like we did an investigation in a house once so I kind of keep cryptids and aliens and demons all in their own category. They may be some of the same, but I feel like we're talking about 3 different categories there.
Yeah.
And but I think it's the really Christian right that feels like aliens or demons. And I'm like, no, we're in a different category. There's so many things.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like I was once at a paranormal conference and there was a lady that did a talk and she wrote a book all about creepypasta. And I never found her again. And it was so interesting of all the debunkings. And the biggest one she was debunking was the black-eyed children, which you don't see anymore.
Right.
And we did an episode on that some years back too. Yeah.
Yeah. She thought that one came across the same way as the rake. So the rake is kind of like the crawler with a different name or something like that. That I agree with. Also, I wonder if those are shapeshifters or something. I almost feel like they're caught between shapes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And what's weird is like some people would post videos, but I couldn't really see anything. I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at here.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to say. And what's really interesting too, there's a theory out there that these crawlers, there's like people are saying that Native Americans call them Gugots and saying that they are considered the people before the people that come from this dream world that aren't welcome in the land of the living or the land of the dead. But I looked into that and I could not find anything to verify it. Like anytime there's like Native American lore stories, I like to go in and see like, is there any validity from that? Because I personally think it's kind of insulting to, the Native American said this. And it's like, did they?
Yeah.
Or are you just saying that to try to give something validity? I could not find a thing from any credible resources to confirm that. So I don't know if this is something where people are having real experiences and then you have other people trying to build off to create their own story or sensationalize it. I do think people are having a real experience with something like the crawler. What it is, I don't know for sure, but I think other people are trying to take advantage of this story and turn it into something else that it's not, just for some kind of clout, perhaps.
Yeah, which is interesting because either people believe you or they don't, and there's no clout to be won.
Yeah.
I remember once we did we were doing an investigation in this home, and I think this is a fairy thing. Again, different category. But when we went back and listened to the EVP, my friend is talking and something is mimicking her voice and talking over her. So we have two different conversations of her talking, like she's talking over herself, like something completely mimicked her voice. And I think that's a trick that Fae do. So it's interesting when you were saying with the crawler, they might be, kind of, did you say voices or talking over you?
Yeah, they'll kind of mimic like words and sounds.
Yeah, it's so interesting because and like I said, in cryptids there's so much and there's so many different things that they could be. These could be like jinn coming into sea, or it could be, kind of love that theory, even though it isn't true, that they were like halfway in between the dreams or something, and we just happened to catch them on the lawn at that time. I remember once Serafina Blackman, who I had to get her back on the show. She's so cute.
I love her.
I think it was her, or was saying how the Fae were like, clean up your garbage, and I was like, what does that mean? And she was like, in their realm, like our ghosts are stuck there. The ghosts, the ones that don't leave the planet, and they're kind of like, get out of our dimension or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's probably true. Like, I feel like this is when, well, you know what? Let's take a break and we're going to come back and I'm going to tell you why I say gut is important. All right, folks, we'll be right back. Hey, everybody, Paranormal Karen, what are you doing? Why aren't you taking CBD? Listen to me. P39CBD.com. That's where you want to go. That's where I go. That is where you're going to find the best. P39 CBD is committed to providing high-quality, premium-grade hemp extract products. P39 CBD uses organically grown industrial hemp sourced from nutrient-abundant soils right here in the USA to ensure a therapeutic-rich CBD product. Now, if you're not using them on your pets, go take a look at the website now. CBD, especially for aging pets, is fantastic, and you know how animals react way better to natural products. Get a jump on your holiday shopping and give the gift of health. Give P39 all-natural CBD. Use coupon code Karen for 20% off. Order now and get a free gift. Now listen to this list. P39 CBD is non-GMO, lab-tested, no pesticides, GMP certified, all natural, family owned and operated business. I couldn't even think of anything to add to that list to make it better. P39CBD.com. Stop by and see what they're all about. And if you're in Arizona, Fountain Hills exactly, make a trip, go in and say hello. Say, I'm a Paranormal Karen listener. 16810 East Ave of the Fountains, Suite 103, Fountain Hills, Arizona. P39CBD.com. Get yours now. Oh, and way back when you were talking about the bugs or the bats coming in, my father got in trouble because he was working in the docking area at GE and a big horrible bug came through. This is the greatest story about my father. This is who he was. So him and his friend put the bug in an envelope and sent it to a secretary. And the bug was not dead and jumped out onto her and she fainted. So,
oh, wow.
That's my dad's story. But I feel like sometimes when people say Fae, I get images in my head right away. Like, I don't know if they're from books but like, I always feel like I kind of know what they look like. So sometimes I think in our gut, if there is, like I said, like how they describe the Jersey Devil, I like that. It looks like a cartoon in my head. But when someone says, I think it was Serafina was saying like all these different Fae were at like a market or something. I swear to God, I can see what most of them look like. So I wonder if that is like where we do tap into other dimensions. But all right, tell me some more awesome ones that you looked up.
All right. Do you want to do the
Yeah,
Dark
sure.
Watchers?
So, right, the Dark Watchers. Have you ever heard of the Dark Watchers
I
before?
have not.
All right, well, check this out. The Dark Watchers are mysterious figures that have been reported along the Santa Lucia Mountains in California. So they're not known to interact or harm anybody, but their presence has been unsettling to anybody that's encountered them. So you have dozens of lone hikers that claim to feel a presence as if they're being watched while in this area. They'll look around and they see a very tall human figure, usually around 10 feet tall is what they estimate, and it has like an eerie presence. It has a walking stick and a hat, and it's watching them.
Is it a hat like the shadow men wear that are kind of like the Men in Black hat, or did they say?
They don't really say. I'm envisioning in my own head like a big, tall, like top hat. That's what I envision, but I don't know if that's what it is. So yeah, there's never like any nothing that we found that says what kind of hat, but that's what pops up in my mind.
Like, I don't think it's a baseball cap.
Yeah, it's not like a baseball hat or anything like that.
And a cowboy hat would just be weird.
Yeah, right. So this figure appears to be in the mountaintops above these hikers, and it's always surrounded by fog. And if anyone ever tries to get closer to it, it disappears. And when it disappears, all of a sudden these people get like this sense of dread that overcomes them. So nobody's ever been able to interact with this thing or even get close enough to see get any more detail on it before it disappears. So another thing that's kind of interesting about all these stories is these dark watchers or watcher, whatever it is, it seems to appear to hikers that have low tech and older gear. So these hikers, anybody that has like newer gear or anything like that, they don't really seem to have any stories or seem to see it. Now, the legend of these dark watchers has apparently been around for hundreds of years. Some have traced this legend back to the oral stories of the Chumash Indians who've lived in that area for generations, right? And now the Chumash, they don't have any records of the Dark Watcher's existence, but they have tales of it that have been passed down over the centuries. So there's been written accounts of these Dark Watchers that go back to the 1700s when the Spanish colonists gave this figure the name Los Vigilantes Oscuros, which is kind of a cool name.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Now,
it's got a lot to it.
Right. Yeah. And now there's a few theories on who or what the Dark Watchers could be. But again, they're just theories, and they range from scientific explanations to paranormal ones. So have you ever heard of something called the pareidolia? I think I'm saying it correctly.
Pareidolia?
Pareidolia.
Yeah.
It sounds familiar.
It's the natural inclination that humans have to see patterns where none actually exist.
So like I have that. So I can look at something and I'll see a face in it. I'll see a figure. Like, you know, when you look at the clouds and you're like, oh, that looks like a frog. And that's kind of part of what that is. Part of it is just everyone's imagination.
Yeah,
but,
we used to call that veiling. We used to call that matrixing. Matrixing is what we would call it. When people were looking, especially when you're staring at like ghost hunting video for the longest time, everything starts to look like a face.
There you go. Yeah. Other people that claim that the sunlight mixed with the mist and shadows can create a possibility of a figure or somebody seeing a figure, and our minds are just trying to create a face for it. It could also be hallucination from the lack of oxygen being at a higher altitude.
And the one thing about that I want to add is I looked up for the San Lucia Mountains with its peak. If you look up in mountains, like at certain levels of elevation at so many feet high, the oxygen starts to drop. So at the tallest peak, yes, you might be around 85% oxygen and hallucinations could start. But these people aren't at the peak of the mountain. They're lower down where there's more oxygen. They're seeing the people higher up. So I kind of like, is that necessarily what it could be? I don't know. I kind of put a little doubt into that one.
Yeah.
It's
other people.
That is a tough one because I feel like when you really see, I feel like there's certain levels of seeing a spirit. Like I've seen a full apparition once, but before that, I think you do see an outline, but it's not a shadow figure. It's more of an outline. I don't know. That's what I always see first, but keep going.
Sure. Another popular thought that people have is that these are supernatural beings that are there to help people who wander off their path. I don't know if that's the case or not, but could be, right?
Could be scaring
now,
them back on the path. Yep.
but possibly, yeah, possibly. Now, have you ever? I'm sure you've heard of John Steinbeck, the famous author.
Yep.
He actually, one of his better known poems is about the Dark Watchers. And it's a short story, actually, excuse me, not a poem, but it's called Flight. And in it, Steinbeck said that he drew inspiration from his mother's own beliefs on the Dark Watchers. Apparently, as a child, she would leave fruits and nuts for them on her way to school. And she claimed that on her way home, she'd find flowers in the exact place where she had left the food.
Ah, I love that story.
I thought that was kind of cool, too.
And if that is true, then these dark watchers, maybe I don't know why people are having a sense of dread, because it could just be you're seeing something and you're in the woods getting creeped out.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
But yeah, it's one of those, like, it seems pretty like benevolent, like they're just kind of there perhaps and just maybe watching over everything.
I think there's a lot more of that. I will tell you, it was always very interesting to me. We had, I used to work with a guy that he was a journalist, or that was his training. And I took him on his first ghost hunt. And it was the first experience with a walk-in where somebody became someone else clearly. And all of a sudden, and we should have kind of known, because the same guy jumped up and he was like, something scratched my neck, which is an entrance point. So something is trying to get in, and it got in. And I had to laugh because this guy was such a skeptic. And after they go, when that happens, you remove the person from the place, you get them as far away from, hoping the thing is territorial and it'll stay there. And you get them off right away. And so they take this guy off the ship. We were on, I think we're on one of the ships in San Diego. And I had to laugh because my friend's voice went up like 20 octaves and he kept going, what happened to Ramiro? What happened to him? What happened to him? And so this really freaked him out. And the next day, he called me with all kinds of excuses. You know what? These guys probably want us to come back. They want our money. He had every excuse he could think of to disregard that experience. Like he had to do that for himself. So I'm betting there's a lot more of this. You know, I have even had nights where I just throw the sheets over my head because I'm like, I don't want to see anymore. So I think it kind of goes both ways. We have the ones that kind of block it out or don't want to talk about it, and then the ones that we matrix in our mind.
Yeah. And it just kind of made me think of an experience we had. So we've done paranormal investigations before, and like, again, we're trying to rule everything out. And a lot of the places we've gone to, there's nothing. There's explanations for everything. And we ended up a couple years ago driving up to Maine and staying at an inn that was allegedly haunted. And what we ended up finding was it wasn't haunted. We didn't have any experience by the person that was allegedly haunting the place, but it was the innkeeper's husband who had passed. And, talking about channeling, I felt him. I was sitting in a chair because we were using dowsing rods. And it was so funny because, like, Alex, like, they're moving and he's like, I don't know. He's watching my hands like she's not moving it, but he still didn't believe me. He's like, I have to do it. And then, they're moving and he's like, whoa. And so at one moment, I was overcome with a sense of love and I just started crying. And I could feel that was the love he had for his wife and he was waiting for her. He watches over her. And we were saying, and it was weird because I got a little nervous, like, I don't want to let him into channel. So I kept that boundary, but it was just this beautiful, loving feeling. And it was very overwhelming. And it was so just beautiful. And I could feel like, no, he is making sure she's okay because now she's alone. taking care of this place. And she has her employees and stuff. But he was looking out for her. And one of the things we talked about after was how we're very respectful when we go places. If we move something, we put it back. We keep everything neat and tidy. Like, we don't want to mess anything up. We want it just as it was, if not better, when we leave it. And we think that might have been why he was also more likely to encounter us because of that, because he knew we were being respectful. And, when we spoke with his wife, she was just so wonderful. And we just thought she was great. And maybe he felt that, I don't know, but it was that watching over. So you never know if it could be like with these dark watchers, it could just be spirits who have a strong connection to that land and are watching over it.
Yeah. And also, I think because you guys are paranormal adjacent, to say the least, that's even, you know what I mean? I think they know that saying you look to the paranormal, it looks back. And so sometimes I wonder if you remember that movie, The Others. I think that has such a great explanation. And sometimes I think it is another dimension or something like that. And another debunk, people don't realize with ghost ships, like, first of all, there's ghost ships that is an actual ship that rolls up and there's nobody on it, or it's empty, or it's just been floating around out there for whatever reason, maybe pirates or something. But there is an actual scientific explanation of a reflection off of the water of a ship on one side of the ocean to be projected on the other, where it really looks like a ghost ship that you're going right through. So there's all kinds of ways that a lot of things can be debunked. People don't really ghost hunting is a lot of sitting around. It is a lot. But
it is. I know it's a lot of like checking and like, okay, like having to do work to make sure like, and can we replicate this? How can we get that same effect? Because you can't just have an experience say, oh, it's ghosts.
Yeah.
You have to be able to prove it's not anything else.
There have been a couple of places. Number one being when Ryan Singer took me to that school. He just did the documentary on it. Middletown is the school, I think, in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
But that place was, when you have a place that active, that's a little different, but it's so rare to find something like that crazy. And also there was kind of a backstory to the guy that was living there, and I think everything was on him. So when you were on him, it was like, whoa, what is going on? But most of these places, especially, it's like when people want you to see their ghost pictures, they're like, rarely is there a real one in there. Rarely. Yeah. You got to break a lot of hearts with that.
And also when you're having an experience, you're not thinking, I want to take a picture of this. You're experiencing it.
That is something that people totally don't understand. It's like, why didn't you get a picture of it? That is not what you're thinking in that moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I think I shared this story the first time we were on your show, that when I lived in Providence, it was that the apartment, the home we were in, was haunted. And I saw it. And I was just like trying to logically figure out what it is. And it's like, it's not that. It can't be this. It can't be that. And I'm just experiencing it. I never once thought, oh, I should get a picture, get it on video. That never went through my mind because I was experiencing it.
Yes, and I know on those shows, like, I really do enjoy Paranormal Caught on Tape, and I always feel like at the beginning of the season, they have really great tapes, and then as the season goes on, they kind of get to the bottom of the barrel, but they've had some good stuff on there, and yes, people drop the camera and run, or there was one they were trying to do, and these guys, oh, look, a fire started on its own, and the guys walked over and were filming it, and I was like, nope, that is not what it feels like when you're around something like that. That is not, you are on alert, it doesn't necessarily have to be scary, but it is like a different realm, kind of.
Yeah.
Where you're not like, it's not like when, oh, there's a hummingbird, get your camera out. It's a different feeling.
No, usually it's either get the fuck out or like, whoa.
Yes. When you're looking at something that is not in your consciousness, that's pretty shocking. But yes, okay. I kind of love that. I think I feel like the Watchers or Shadow Men. Especially shadow men in apartments. I think you can really catch them. I don't know why, but it's yeah. Again, it could be something else, kind of just showing halfway through. But I love that. Okay, give me another one.
So we have another one. I don't know if I would call this a cryptid per se, but it's just really cool. So we wanted to talk about it.
All right.
And I apologize. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but I think I am. Have you heard of the Nymerigar?
I think so. All these sound vaguely familiar, but these words wrap around a lot. What is that one? Tell us about that one.
So the Nymerigar are a race of these little people in the Shoshone folklore said to inhabit the Pedro Mountains of Wyoming. And they're said to be about 20 inches to 3 feet tall. And apparently, like, this goes back before the European settlers and everything. And they're described as aggressive, but also magical with healing abilities. And they're unfriendly towards humans. And it's believed they use these poison arrows to bring down their intruders.
I had a case with one of these. Go ahead.
Did you?
I did.
You got to tell them.
Yeah.
Okay. So this guy who he didn't have dementia. There were two men living together, and his daughter got a hold of me, and she actually flaked at one point. But sometimes I wonder, when I've worked with people that have, when I've worked with people that have demonic stuff, you have to constantly, hey, did you get my call? Did you get my package? Because it just disappears. But this wasn't that. But she said her father was seeing these little people, and he kept describing them as like marionette type dolls, and they were people, and he was saying they wouldn't stop making noise and dancing in his apartment, and they kept him up at night, and they drove him nuts. And his partner was like, I don't see them. And then he would say, don't you see they just jumped on the couch? And then the throw pillows would fly off of the couch. So
what?
Right. Like, so physical things were happening, but only one guy could see them. And they were absolutely trying to drive him nuts. Like, usually in that, you can kind of figure out a territory or something. And I had to go to the Native American team that I talked to, and they knew exactly what they were. Now, for some reason, I don't know if the guy got sick or the woman disappeared from I emailed her a couple of times. Wait a minute. I think I have an answer. I think I know what this is. But it was exactly like this. And I had never, even Tommy was like, what? Little people? So, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy that you had brought those up today.
Yeah. Well, I'll get into the story because in 1932, there were two miners, Cecil Main and Frank Carr, and they were searching for gold in the San Pedro Mountains, which was about 60 miles southwest of Casper, Wyoming. And they were blasting into a hidden mountain cave. And they discovered this small, naturally mummified human. It was about 6.5 inches tall, and it was like a seated position on a ledge, and its legs were crossed and its arms were wrapped around its torso. And it was about 14, if you had it standing, it would be about 14 inches tall. And it had this brown wrinkled flesh. It had fingernails, but its head was covered in some gelatinous substance. Its nose and skull were flattened, giving it a low, flat forehead. And it had these heavy lidded, bulging eyes and a thin lipped mouth with a full set of teeth. And it was described as childlike yet ancient and became known as the San Pedro mummy. So the mummy was later dubbed as Pedro Mountains mummy, or Pedro for short. And there was this indication that it could once have been a member of a hidden race of these little people living in America. And it's believed that a particular burial ground contained several remains of a pygmy race that were about 3 feet in height. So it's almost like it makes me think of Gulliver's Travels, where, the little people, because we've talked on our show about giants before. And if there are giants, why can there not be little people as well?
Yeah. And, or are these, it's interesting because I know when people talk about demons, they said anciently they used to walk the earth. And if your demon came by you, you were on the wrong path. They called them teachers, like friends. Whereas now
Yeah.
they're like this hidden dark thing. And I almost wonder if that's where like a set of elves, like they were elves and
Maybe.
it's kind of moved into a different place where they don't exist on this dimension anymore. But talk about getting out on a limb. I love this one. Go ahead.
So Pedro was passed around through several owners, and he was used as a display in like sideshow exhibits and stores because the miners who found him thought, "Ooh, we can make money from this." So it exchanged hands many times. And there was somebody who owned it, and they had Pedro examined by the American the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And apparently the owner had x-rays taken. So they looked at the x-rays, and they had the anthropology department of Harvard University also verify all of their work that they did. And both the museum and the anthropology department of Harvard agreed that this mummy was not a composite hoax, but in fact, like a real human specimen. So remember, like the Fiji mermaid, where, that was like parts stitched together? This was a real human being.
Wow.
And so a lot of people in the scientific community believe that this mummy was simply a baby suffering from anencephaly, which is like a birth defect. And like they were pretty convinced it's just a birth defect. But its appearance was also similar to that of a full grown adult. It had a full set of teeth. Babies don't have full sets of teeth. There was also evidence of solid food in Pedro's stomach. So again, if this is an infant, infants don't eat solid food. And lastly, Pedro did not seem to die a natural death. His spine was damaged, his collarbone was broken, and his skull had been smashed. So apparently, like his skull, like it was exposed to where the brain was. From being smashed in. And, some experts reconciled these discrepancies by saying he was an adult dwarf. But of that size, 14 inches tall, like
that's tiny.
That's small.
Yeah.
And so in the 1950s, the owner of Pedro, his name's Ivan Goodman, he actually lost Pedro. It's believed he lost it to a New York con man. And so the mummy was never recovered. So no more further testing could be done. So it's unsure. Could it have been a small child or a lost Native American pygmy race? Like people don't know. But the Naimarigar, they were known to kill off those in their community who suffer from debilitating age. If they were really ill or injured that they couldn't heal, they would kill them with a low blow to the head. And that would account for Pedro's head injury and the damage he suffered. So it kind of sounds like it wasn't a baby with a birth defect.
Yeah, they don't sound like a great group either. They say, I mean, unless that's like The Walking Dead, like if you're going to slow us down, we're leaving you.
Yeah. And that's what it kind of seems like. But what's weird too is in 1876, the Anthropological Journal and the New York Times both reported, I don't know if you've heard about this, on a 6-acre graveyard between 75,000 to 100,000 pygmies in Coffee County, Tennessee. So they found this essentially a graveyard of all these small humans. And the deceased were found to be buried in either a sitting or standing position. And at first they were thought to be children, but the skulls were found to have wisdom teeth. So that led investigators to, think, well, maybe they were a part of a dwarf tribe of people, and they were about 3 feet high. And there was also a similar find that had been reported 40 years earlier from a site near Chouocton in Ohio. So none of these little people were found mummified in these cases, but the circumstances were very similar to Pedro. So it could have been where Pedro was. The cave closed in. Perhaps that's what mummified him naturally compared to just being buried. But there's a lot of similarities. So it's really interesting, too, how it seems like history has a way of hiding the past.
Yes. Well, that's what is it. Don't archaeologists talk about they're going to get tossed out or to be laughed at if they really talk about like some of the things they find that are way out of
Yep.
place? Yeah. That's interesting. It's funny when you said they're 14 inches. I thought, man, I used to trip over courage sometimes. That's so tiny.
And then just imagine them like throwing poison darts at you.
I know. Well, there's another whole part of that story. Like, why would a con man want a little mummified 14-inch person unless he was going to make money off of it and
Right.
let us see it? Like, unless there is, what the hell is in the Vatican? I think there's a whole lot of evidence, and maybe Pedro is in the. This is
in the basement of the Vatican.
Pedro is in the basement of the Vatican. But I wonder if they do collect things like that. Like we were saying earlier, if you have one experience you can't explain, then you're open to everything. So I think they make sure we don't have a lot of experiences we can't explain.
It's just so interesting how so much stuff gets buried and hidden. They don't want people to remember it. They don't want people to know about it. And Alex and I talk about it. Is it because they're afraid of the mass panic? Because, a person can be smart, but people in groups, mass hysteria? I mean, is that why? But I always think there's something else. I think it's because they don't want people really knowing the truth. Personally, and I'll go on my little soapbox, I think we are all these magical beings who have so much more abilities than we realize, and they don't want us to know that. They don't want us, because if we pull one thread, we'll start pulling more and unraveling it all and figuring it out.
I think that's exactly it. Because like I said, if you have one experience, you are open to more. And I don't know, you and I have talked about how there's some weird, everything can have weird evidence, whatever. I have heard people say with the moon landing, who was holding the camera? Or, there are a couple of things there where you go, what? But I do believe that we didn't go that time because we had already been there. That's a really plausible idea to me. But I do feel like we're supposed to believe the narrative and not break from it because it's the most fascinating thing. There was a comic I knew that was so Irish, and he really was alcoholic. I don't mean that to Irish people, but I meant that more as like a comic thing because most of them are. And he said he's never had an experience, except he said one day he was walking through the mall and he turned around and there was a tiny green man with big teeth that smiled at him and goes, "How you doing, matey?" And then disappeared. And he swears, and I was like, I think he met an elf or a leprechaun. And it was just, he's so Irish. And this thing was just like, it came out of the other dimension. It was like, "How you doing, matey?" And it went away. And for someone that has no experiences, doesn't talk about anything like this, to be like, "What did I see?" It's like, I don't know. You saw something.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like when people see things, like when I see stuff, I can't control it. It's not like, ooh, I want to see a fairy and I'm going to look around and see one. It's just like, oh shit. Hey, how's it going? It's there. And same with, a spirit, things like that. And it's almost a little like startling because it's like, wait a minute, what? And as much as, I believe in fae and ghosts and everything, it's like, I still always stop and say like, wait a minute, what was that? And is there like a scientific explanation? Mm-hmm. Was it my eyes playing tricks on me? Was it a trick of the light? I try to go through all these things to, think, okay, because I don't want to just be making it up in my mind. I want to be able to make sure it's not this, that, or that.
Yes. Well, people still amaze me at the psychic stand-up show when I will say something and they'll go, "How did you know that?" And I'll go, that's how this works. That's what we're doing.
Yeah. Like when I first started reading tarot, I would get, "How did you know that?" But it was always so accusatory. Like as if I was like spying on them. And so that like really made me like, stop reading tarot for a long time because it got so accusatory. Like, what, do you think I like have been going through your drawers and like reading your diary or something? Yeah. It's like, this is what I'm getting. This is how it works. Yeah. But yeah,
it's pretty weird. We're way over, but if you guys have one more, I'll listen. I love this.
Well, we did do one more, but it's one of the things. So this is called the Shunka Larrikin. And have you heard about this?
Not at all. Shunka, not skunk, right?
Shunka?
No.
No, Shunka, Shunka.
Nope. Haven't heard of it.
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll take this one. Why not? So the Shunka Warrican, it's known by the name the Rocky Mountain hyena. So this alleged cryptid has been spotted across Montana for centuries. It's said to have a dark coat, high shoulders with a slanted back, and it preys on animals like cows, goats, and even dogs. It's said to be wolf-like, but not a wolf, and some say it looks more like a hyena. So draw your own conclusions. Now, the name Shunka Warrican comes from the, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Iowa tribe from Native American lore. And they describe the beast as a canid non-wolf that would sneak into camps at night and make off with dogs.
Oh.
So, according to the legend, after one fierce battle with the Shunka Warrican, the tribe was victorious and wore its hide into battle for protection to be as hard to kill as the Shunka Warrican was. Other tribes, like the Crow and the Blackfoot, have shared similar stories, believing the creature was a powerful and dangerous spirit that could steal their dogs and kill their livestock. So back in 1866, somebody actually killed one of these things, a rancher, and in exchange for a new cow, he traded it to a taxidermist. And this taxidermist stuffed the creature and put it on display in a combo grocery store museum in Henry Lake, Idaho.
Right.
And it was
grocery store / museum. Get
Right.
the best of both worlds.
Yeah, why not? It was on display there until the 1980s when it disappeared for a while. The taxidermist's name was Joseph Sherwood, and he called this thing the ringdocus. The only existing proof of this creature was a black and white photo that was published in a 1977 autobiography of the naturalist Ross Hutchins, who was the grandson of the rancher who allegedly shot this beast. The carcass of this thing was stuffed, mounted, and then vanished, like we said, until it was discovered again in the storage area of the Idaho Museum of Natural History. When it was found, it was 4 feet long and 28 inches at the shoulder. It was dark gray in color. It had a low head and sloping back with vague stripes on its flanks. They did a DNA test to confirm the identity of the beast, or excuse me, a DNA test was requested but was not done. They were trying to confirm the identity of the beast. There's a debate as to whether it's a new species, a hybrid, a mutation, or something else. Some people think it's related to the dire wolf, which is an extinct species from the Ice Age. Others think it could be a surviving member of the Amphision, which is an ancient carnivore that resembled a bear dog.
And we looked at the photo of this thing.
Yeah.
It kind of does look like a hyena wolf dog hybrid, but it doesn't look that big.
No, and it's. I mean, it tells you it's not that big, but apparently, allegedly, it's hard to kill. It was this ancient dog kind of thing, I guess. But what's really surprising to me is that they never act. I don't know why we could not find why the DNA test was never done.
From what I got, it was like they were just content with having it. So I don't know. To me, anytime people are like, "No, we believe in what it is," I get certain people and their cultures and their beliefs, but I don't know. I think sometimes people are also afraid because they're afraid of what the truth could be.
Right, because they like the story. And also,
Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Is it similar to a dog man or no?
No, this one's different.
Okay, looks different face.
It literally looks like a hyena dog kind of.
It's very
weird.
Yeah, we'll have to send you a picture of it so you can see for yourself. But I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, and like if you look it up for anyone listening, you can like look these things up. So the Pedro, Nymerigar, you can look that up and actually see the x-rays. You can see the photos of him, the Shunkawarikan, and you can look this up and actually see the photo of this creature. And it's in like this display case. So you can look for yourself. Like we always tell people, do your own research, check it out for yourself.
Well, you know what else? It's like we were talking about when there isn't a time to take a picture or you're not thinking that. When the thing has already been taxidermied, that's the time to take a lot of pictures.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a great time to do it. Not while it's coming at you trying to kill your livestock and your family.
Right.
But, after you've killed it.
I know. That's so true. Wow, you guys, this was amazing.
Thank you. It was so much fun talking with you.
It was a blast, Karen.
This was like one of my favorite episodes. All right, tell everyone where to find you, what you offer, all kinds of stuff.
All right. So you can find the Homewrecker podcast anywhere you hear podcasts. And we also have a YouTube. So we put the audio up on there. And Karen, you're going to be, as we're recording, what month? We're in June. So we're in mid-June. You're coming up, I think, this Sunday. We're going to put your episode. So I know
this episode will be, I think, in November. I literally am that far ahead.
We are like, we're a week ahead. But so go back. If you didn't hear that episode, go back and hear Karen because we had some really fun conversations. Yeah. So it's homewreckerpodcast.com if you want to check out our website. And for myself, I am a certified hypnotherapist and a certified stress management consultant. So if you're interested in hypnotherapy, I offer group sessions and I offer one-on-one, and I have digital downloads by going to innerstandingshypnosis.com. And if you're interested in a tarot reading or some orgonite or incense or candles, go to tarotbymonique.com.
And you do some great past life work there too.
Thank you.
Yes, that, and also, yes, and you guys' podcast is great. So if you're not listening to that podcast, tune into Homewrecker.
Thank you.
They do the research I am not willing to do.
I go down these rabbit holes. I'm just like, whoa. And sometimes it's like, I need to stop because I'll just go everywhere. And I'm like, I just have to say this is enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I get that way, but I get that way on TikTok, which I really do think is reprogramming my brain. So I have to get off of it.
I limit the time I allow myself on there.
I set an alarm because you have to, because it really is, something is sucking us in. I really think so.
And I think it's by design.
Yes. And actually, if you go back and listen to my podcast with Monique, we talk a lot about mind control. I forgot. There's another story I have to remember and tell you later where I was like, I know what that is. It's programming. It's deep programming going in. Oh, I know. It was about Maharic shielding. Everyone, I'll just give this thumbnail. If you're on my Patreon, you already know. Look up Maharic shielding and do it. And you will be amazed how quiet it is in your head. That's all I'm telling you. Or join my Patreon.
Join the Patreon. I am a subscribing member to your Patreon, and I love it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And you guys, it's always great to talk to you. I hope I get up your way this summer to see you. And thanks for doing this great episode. And the research.
Absolutely.
Thank you
so much. We love you. Thank you, everyone listening. We love you. Thank you. We hope to see you soon, Karen.
And I love you guys. Thanks, everybody. And thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Paranormal Karen. She's a spooky kind of queen. Paranormal Karen.